Anava Pranam to assembled devotees, my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, text, chapter 2, text 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekheha kuru nandana bahu shakha hyantantascha buddhayo vyavasashinam. O descendant of the Kuru dynasty, resolute intelligence dedicated to me is one-pointed. I am its only objective. But irresolute intelligence is swayed by endless desires for mundane enjoyment. Yamimam purushpitam vacham prabadhantyapi paschita vidhavadha rata parta nanyad astiti vandina. O Partha, unwise persons, not knowing that the chief directive of the Vedas is the attainment of the supreme truth, are found interpreting the fleeting enchanting words of the Karmakand section of the Vedas as ultimate. Kamatmana svarga para janma karma phalapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bogishvarya gatim prati. Their hearts are filled with desires, and their goal is heaven. They advocate the many sacrifices and rituals that yield wealth, worldly pleasures, and high birth. Bogishvarya prashaktanam tayap vrta chitasam vyavhasayatmika buddhi samadhana vidhiyate. Thus attached to enjoyment and opulence, deluded by these flowery words of the Vedas, they do not attain the resolve to dedicate themselves to the Supreme Lord. Trigunya Vishaya Veda Nistrigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdavanvo Nityasattvosto Niryogo Kshema Atmavan. O Arjuna, the Vedas deal with the three modes of material nature by accommodating fruit of action and liberation as an allowance and incentive for persons who are ignorant of the true object of the Vedas. O Arjuna, the Vedas deal with the three modes of material nature by accommodating fruit of action and liberation as an allowance and incentive for persons who are ignorant of the true objective of the Vedas. But you, Arjuna, give up duality and all pursuits for gain and preservation. Stand ever in the plane of truth, and by the yoga of wisdom transcend the modes of nature. The objective of the Vedas is transcendental, without fruit of action or liberation. O Arjuna, follow the transcendental path of devotion to the Lord as taught by the Vedas. Yavan artha udhapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanata. As all the purposes served by several ponds can be served better by a large lake, similarly, the fruits of worshipping the various gods by their respective Vedic prayers are surpassed by serving me. The knower of Brahman, who thus knows the purport of the Vedas, fulfills all life's objectives. Karmanye bhadhikaraste mafaleshu kadachana makarma phala hetur bhur mate shangostva karmani. Your right is to your work, never to the fruits. Be neither motivated by the fruit of action, nor inclined to give up action. Yogasta kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya Siddhyashidhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchate. O Dhananjaya, give up the ego that you are the doer, and be equipoised in success and failure. Thus stand firm in the plane of yoga and do your prescribed duties. Such a state of balance is indeed known as yoga. Tvarena hyavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya. Buddho saranam anvicha kripana phala hetava. O Dhananjaya, fruit of action is far inferior to this yoga of wisdom. Those motivated by the fruits of their actions are misers. Therefore seek refuge in the selfless wisdom of equanimity. Text 50. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe shukrita dushkrite tasmad yudhaya yujasva yogha karmasu kaushalam. The wise person abstains from both good and bad actions in this world. Engage thus in yoga, as yoga is the art of all works. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tyaktva manishina janma bandha vinirmukta padam gachanti anamayam. The wise are enlightened by giving up the fruits of their actions, and thus attaining liberation from the bondage of birth. They reach the plane beyond all suffering. Yadhe moha kalilam Yadhate moha kalilam buddhir vyatitaresyati tadha gantasi nirvedam shrotavasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence fully emerges from the dense forest of illusion, you will be indifferent to all that has been heard or is yet to be heard. Shruti vipratipanate yadastayasti nischala samhadhavachala buddhistadha yogam avapasyasi. You shall attain perfect yoga or pure devotion when your intelligence, undisturbed by the apparent contradictions of the Vedas, abides in the Lord. You shall attain perfect yoga or pure devotion when your intelligence, undisturbed by the apparent contradictions of the Vedas, abides in the Lord. Arjuna uvacha stita prajanasya kabhasa samadhistasya keshava stitadi kim prabhaseta kim ashita vrajeta kim. Arjuna said, O Keshava, what are the characteristics of the person of firmly established wisdom, who is fully absorbed in consciousness of the Supreme, Samadhi? How does such a man of steady mind speak and be and also act in this world? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yadha Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmanyevatmana Tushta Stita Prajnas Tadochayati. The Supreme Lord said, O Partha, one who rejects all desire to enter the mind and remains self-satisfied within, is known as a person whose wisdom is firmly established. Dukeshabhanudvignamana Shukeshu Vighaptas Viriha Vitaragha Bayakrodhastita Dirmunir Uchate. One who is undisturbed by sorrow, whose hankering for pleasure has gone, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is known as a silent sage of steady mind. Yasarvatranha Vishnehas Tatat Prapya Subhashubham Nabhinanandati Nadvesti Tasya Prajna Pratistita. One who is not attached to anything in this world, who neither enjoys nor resents auspiciousness or inauspiciousness. His wisdom is firmly established. Yadha samharate chayam kurmo nidnaiva sarvasha driyanindriyatarbhyas tasya pragya pratistita. When one's senses are controlled and totally withdrawn from their objects, like the limbs of the tortoise withdrawn in its shell, his wisdom is firmly established. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param dristva nivartate. The embodied being may renounce the sense objects, but the taste for them remains. But that too vanishes for the man of wisdom by his vision of the Supreme. Text 60. Yatatto hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramatini haranti prasambhamana. And yet, O son of Kunti, the turbulent senses can forcibly plunder the mind of even the wise person striving for liberation. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta ashita matpara vashehi yasyandriyani tasya pragya pratistita. Devoted to me, the Bhakti Yogi brings his senses under proper control. Firmly established is the wisdom, one whose senses are controlled. Jyayato vishhayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho jayate. But one whose thoughts dwell on the objects of the senses becomes attached to them. From attachment, desire is born, and from desire, anger arises. Krodhat bhavati samoha samohat smrti vibhramaha smrti brahmashad buddhi naso buddhi nasat pranasyati. Anger gives rise to delusion, and the power of delusion causes forgetfulness. Forgetfulness destroys the intelligence, and when the intelligence is lost, one loses all. Ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishiyan indriyaischaran atma vaishyardyadheyatma prachadam adhigchayati. But the integrated person, who can control his mind at will, and who, free from attraction and repulsion, accepts his worldly necessities through his controlled senses, attains tranquility. Prashade sarva dukhanam hanir asho pajayate prashana chetaso hyaso buddhi paryavitastika. When one attains a peaceful heart, all his sorrows are dispelled. The tranquil person's wisdom swiftly becomes steadfast. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nachabhavayata shantir asantasya kutashukam. A person bereft of self-control can have neither wisdom nor meditation. Without meditation there is no peace, and without peace, where is the hope for happiness? Indriyanam hicharatam yanmano nuvidhiyate tadasya harati prajam vayurnavam ibhambasi. As a boat on the ocean is thrown off course by an unfavorable wind, similarly, the wisdom of a person lacking self-control is carried away by even one of the roaming senses that the mind might follow. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrityatani sarvasha indriyanindriyartabhyas tasya pragya pratistita. Therefore, O subduer of the enemy, one whose senses are fully withdrawn from their objects is a person of firmly established wisdom. Yanista sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami Yasyam jagrati bhutanin sanisha pasyato mune. That which is day for the self-controlled sage is night for all beings, and that which is day for all beings is night for the sage who sees. The living beings absorbed in mundane life are asleep to the spiritual joy of the realized soul, who remains indifferent to their quest for the pleasures of the senses, devoid of spiritual joy. Text 70. Apuryamhanam achala pratistam samudram apa pravishanti advat. Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti nakamakami. As the ocean remains full and unchanged, though many rivers and streams enter into it, the person of firmly established wisdom attains peace despite all desires entering him. But a person who nurtures desires cannot know peace. That ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Chula Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All glories to Arupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Nishkam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sosadevi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Hari 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 Bol. Jai.